Rumor has it that France has deployed troops to the Ukrainian city. Ukrainian soldiers are angry because Kiev abolished the demobilization deadline. French units are said to have arrived in the city of Slavyansk to support the Ukrainian army in its war with Russia. Telegram channel Military Chronicle, based on information from private sources, said that the first units of the French Foreign Legion arrived in the city of Slavyansk to support the Ukrainian army in the face of the threat of attack by the Russian army. According to the above source, there are currently 100 French soldiers in the city. These servicemen became part of the 54th Mechanized Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Units of the French Foreign Legion were spotted on the Polish-Ukrainian border about a week ago, traveling in military equipment, including NATO-made Abrams tanks. Military reporters said that the first group of French soldiers to arrive in Slavyansk specialized in artillery reconnaissance and technical work, including the construction of fortifications and field fortifications. The above information coincides with statements made 2 weeks ago by the head of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, Sergei Naryshkin, when he announced France's military preparations on Ukrainian territory. According to him, the total number of French troops that can be sent to Ukraine will be up to 2,000 people. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said in early April that France would likely send about 1,500 combat-ready soldiers to Ukraine. It is expected that in April, the group will be put into combat readiness to deploy to the Ukrainian battlefield, Ms. Zakharova said, but did not provide specific evidence. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu on April 3 warned his French counterpart Sébastien Lecornu that deploying Parisian soldiers to Ukraine would cause disaster for France. Mr. Shoigu said that France will create problems for itself if it decides to send troops to Ukraine. Previously, French President Emmanuel Macron left open the possibility of sending troops to Ukraine, but he emphasized that Paris currently has no such plans. French Foreign Minister Stéphane Séjourné said in February that France may send demining personnel and non-combat personnel to Ukraine to support Kiev in its 2-year war with Russia. However, the French diplomat did not state the specific date of this plan. The French defense minister emphasized that France will continue to support Ukraine long and strongly when necessary in the struggle for freedom and sovereignty, to bring peace and security to the European continent. Moscow has repeatedly stated that it will consider Western troops and foreign-supplied weapons systems on Ukrainian territory as legitimate targets. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov warned last month that the deployment of foreign forces would be a major escalation, leading to irreparable consequences. Faced with manpower shortages, Ukrainian officials have cancelled allowing soldiers to demobilize after extending their service periods. After nearly 2 years of military service on the front lines of the Russia-Ukraine war, Alina's husband was very upset about the new mobilization law. The Ukrainian parliament passed this law on April 11 after months of debate and nearly 4,300 amendments. Alina said her husband and his brothers-in-arms were dumbfounded by the removal of limits on the length of military service. Previous versions of the law provided for discharge after 36 months of service, with no limit to their time in the army, and with the failure of last year's counteroffensive and months of delays in Western military aid, they realized that their service might only end with disability or death. Alina, a Kiev resident with 2 children, told Al Jazeera, "The government has humiliated and insulted them. They are not eternal. They want to see their children grow up and be at home," she said. "The enemy is 7 to 10 times more numerous than us," Joint Forces Commander Yuri Sodal told lawmakers on April 10 as he urged them to pass the law. But President Volodymyr Zelensky has not yet officially announced the mobilization law because of fears of backlash from the people. The law was passed with 283 votes in the 450-member parliament, mainly from the Servant of the People Party, Zelensky's party that dominates the Verkhovna Rada, Ukraine's parliament. The law raises wages for frontline service workers and provides death benefits to families, but Zelensky's political opponents have criticized the abolition of active duty. A few hours after the law was passed, the parliament called on the government to develop an additional bill on demobilization and rotation of soldiers on the front line. Abolishing the conscription limit is expected to anger seasoned soldiers, especially those who began enlisting in 2014, when Moscow supported pro-Russian separatists in southeastern Ukraine to help them. established two separatist republics. Artem Osipian, a psychologist turned soldier, wrote on Facebook, "Who will I be next? Will I always be a soldier? Is my life so trivial? What makes life is someone else's life more meaningful and less worthy of sacrifice than my life." Younger soldiers also found the complete removal puzzling. Taras, who signed up for 3 years of military service from February 2022, said, "This is supposed to be like a job, 3 years of work and then it's over. But it looks like I'll be serving to victory over Russia." For military families, the uncertainty surrounding discharge leaves them depressed and demoralized. The wife of a soldier stationed in the eastern town of Kramatorsk told Al Jazeera, "You don't need to fight until you die, you need to know when your duty ends." Her husband joined the army in 2015 but switched to volunteering after injuries that affected his ability to walk. He returned to combat in 2022 and remained on the front lines after suffering half a dozen bruises, vision and digestive problems and spending weeks in hospital. "They will be there until the last man survives." Literally, the last man, his wife said. Uncertainty about the term of service also worries those about to join the army. Within hours of the conflict starting in February 2022, volunteers flocked to military service offices, especially in the eastern and central regions, and some even still have to go to western Ukraine to join the army. But general enthusiasm cooled after news of serious losses and terrible conditions in trenches and army barracks, amid corruption by officers and suppliers. The mobilization law plans to establish an electronic registration agency instead of the outdated paper system that causes corruption. Over the past 2 years, police and investigators have reported the arrest of dozens of military service officials. Some amassed millions of dollars in cash and bought prime real estate in Ukraine and Europe. Everyone of combat age will have 60 days to register in person or through an electronic registry, and those who do not register will be considered draft dodgers. Men will have to carry their registration with them at all times. "The opponent is very strong, has enough resources, enough manpower," a soldier stationed in the southern Kherson region told Al Jazeera. "We need better trained people who understand what they're getting into, what they're signing up for." Forced military conscription has become a scourge across Ukraine. In many rural areas, most men of fighting age have been drafted into the army, while in urban centers, young men avoid being in public places or using public transportation. Because there are duty officers and police on patrol. Teshiana Bosco, who works at a hospital canteen in northern Kiev, told Al Jazeera, "5 people I know went to the military service office and did not come back because they were deployed to a training facility. Right away.